Welcome to this masterclass. Look, I've got my examiner's lens firmly on today, and we are going to strategically dissect the Partnership Agreement and the Partnership Act 1890 provisions for Cambridge Accounting 9706. Based on recent principal examiner reports, a staggering number of highly capable students completely crash on these questions. Why? Because understanding the raw accounting math is literally only half the battle. If you're just memorizing the default rules without knowing how to deploy them strategically, you're leaving huge marks on the table. Today, we're not just reviewing facts. We are going to look at the exact structural elements, the hidden constraints, and the specific cognitive traps examiners actively set for you in grading your papers. Let's get right into it.
This quote right here, it perfectly highlights the razor-thin margin between average and elite exam performance. The default rules of the 1890 Act versus a custom partnership agreement form the absolute bedrock of how profits, losses, and salaries are handled in this syllabus. But to get that A-star, we need to talk about command words. Examiners use specific words to dictate exactly what they want. You have to deeply contrast analyze versus evaluate. If a 9-mark prompt says analyze a partnership dispute, you're mechanically breaking down the data, calculating the 5% interest on a loan, for example. But if it says evaluate, you are now judging the fairness of the agreement and making a justified recommendation. Same goes for explain versus to what extent. Explain is just telling me what the 1890 Act says. But to what extent? That is a massive red flag that you must provide a balanced, two-sided argument. To secure those top-tier marks, we're splitting this session into 4 key areas. 1. Core principles. 2. The technical methodology. 3. Critical analysis and evaluation. And 4. Top examiner warnings. Let's start with Section 1, Core Principles, the theoretical foundations of your exam strategy. Okay, successful candidates do not rely on rote memorization. You must master 3 distinct cognitive domains, known as assessment objectives, AO1, AO2, and AO3. Let's look at a complex, high-tariff sample question. Say a 15-mark essay asking, to what extent should partners rely on the default provisions of the 1890 Act? Now, AO1 is knowledge. That gets you in the door. Simply recalling that under the 1890 Act, profits are shared equally, there are no salaries, and loans get 5% interest. But that's maybe 3 or 4 marks max. AO2 is analysis. That's applying the rule to the specific dispute in the prompt. But AO3, evaluation. That is the absolute gold standard. That is where you argue that relying on the 1890 Act might actually be detrimental to a partner who invests significantly more capital but receives the exact same profit share. If you just recite facts, you are literally leaving the bulk of your marks on the table. And this is exactly why top-performing students build cross-topic connections. You cannot look at a partnership agreement in a vacuum. The examiner is actively looking to see if you understand the broader financial ecosystem. For example, how does a sudden change in the profit-sharing ratio affect the partner's current and capital accounts? Or, if a partner provides a loan to the business to secure that 5% interest, how does that impact the overall liquidity and working capital of the firm? Drawing these lateral connections signals to the examiner that you aren't just a robot crunching numbers. You are a strategic thinker who understands the full implications of the 1890 Act. Let's move into Section 2, the technical methodology, where we talk about execution and process. Notice the heavy emphasis on the method mark strategy. Examiners actively reward you for a logical process. To really illustrate this, I want to bring you into a digital study suite session I hosted recently with 2 brilliant scholars. We'll call them Alex and Sam. Now, Alex is highly technical, an absolute machine with formulas and facts, but struggles when a question becomes open-ended. Sam, on the other hand, is a highly creative thinker, fantastic at writing arguments, but sometimes lacks structural precision and time management. We were looking at a brutal 12-mark appropriation account dispute. Alex immediately wanted to just punch numbers into the calculator to find the final profit figure, but I had to stop him, because if you punch the wrong number halfway through, you lose the final answer mark. However, if your methodology is sound, if you show your step-by-step process, you capture all those vital method marks. So I made Alex and Sam follow this strict 6-step procedural framework. First, deconstruct the question. Alex says, okay, the prompt is asking for the revised profit share. I say, good. Step 2, extract the data. Sam chimes in, well, there's no written agreement mentioned in the second paragraph, so we have to assume the 1890 Act applies. Exactly. That's a huge analytical leap. Then they started debating the framework. Alex argued, we just divide the $40,000 profit equally. But Sam caught the trap. Wait, no! Partner B made a $10,000 loan. Under the 1890 Act, we have to deduct the 5% interest on that loan, which is $500, before we split the residual profit. This is what securing maximum method marks looks like. You select the framework, execute with clear notation, verify, and present. It is a highly repeatable engine for generating marks, and listening to Alex and Sam debate it proved how easily you can miss a step if you rush.
During that same session, Sam wanted to just scribble the final profit shares in a quick paragraph. I had to step in again. Your presentation must follow strict conventions. Proper headings tell the examiner exactly what they are looking at. Correct terminology shows professional competence. Clear formats and annotations are non-negotiable. If an examiner has to hunt for your calculation of that 5% loan interest hidden in a messy margin, you will not get the grade you deserve. Even if your argument is brilliant like Sam's, failing to format it properly locks you out of the top bands.
Let's transition to Section 3, Critical Analysis and Evaluation. This is all about unlocking those top-tier bands.
Okay, I'm going to pause the session right here. Right before we get into solving the absolute hardest part of this evaluation roadblock, I want to remind you that crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent weekly strategy. So, if you are finding this breakdown valuable, hit the subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE EO and A levels. That's at acetheexam_IGCS, and make sure you enable all notifications by ringing that bell. You'll see the pop-up on your screen now. Do it so you never miss a breakthrough strategy. All right, back to our scholars Alex and Sam. They were trying to write an evaluation paragraph for a 15-mark question. Top-scoring candidates question assumptions and justify decisions with evidence. Alex drafted a paragraph saying the 1890 Act is fair because it treats everyone equally. It was totally flat. Sam jumped in and said, but wait, we need to consider alternative interpretations. Partner A works 60 hours a week, and Partner B works 10. The 1890 Act says no salaries are paid. That's a massive limitation. They hit a major roadblock trying to link these thoughts together smoothly under time pressure. So I used a picture-in-picture feature on our smartboard to pause their drafting, step in and explain the cognitive strategy required to actually get unstuck.
I told them when you evaluate evidence, you must explicitly identify both similarities and differences using proper comparative connectives. We literally rewrote their flawed section out loud together. Instead of Alex's generic sentence, we wrote, whereas a custom partnership agreement could legally mandate a $20,000 salary for partner A to compensate for their 60-hour workweek, the 1890 Act conversely strictly prohibits partner salaries. Consequently, relying solely on the 1890 Act in this specific scenario is highly inequitable and could lead to severe partner disputes, thereby threatening the firm's long-term stability. Do you see the difference? We use words like whereas, conversely, and consequently. We moved from a mediocre zero-mark generic answer to a flawless full-mark evaluative response by analyzing the direct effect on the conclusion. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, Top Examiner Warnings, and what I call the context trap. Welcome to our interactive pause and practice visual workshop. Look at the screen. I'm putting up a complex text excerpt from a past paper regarding a business run by two partners, David and Elena. I'm going to put a 60-second visual countdown timer on the screen. I want you to read it and think about the top 3 mistakes students make. Ready? Go. Okay, time's up. The first 2 mistakes are mechanical, forgetting proper formatting and failing to double-check that presentation. We've covered that. But mistake number 3, providing answers not specific to the context given. This is the ultimate examiner trap. Students see Partnership Act and they just vomit every fact they know onto the page without actually answering the specific prompt about David and Elena. If your answer could apply to literally any business in the world, you are going to score 0 marks for application. Let's do another exercise. Spot the flaw. On the left side of the screen is a poorly written student answer. It says, partners get 5% interest on loans, no salaries, and share profits equally. Your task is to find the errors. Well, the first error is that it's just a generic list. The second error is it doesn't mention the names from the prompt. The third error is it completely ignores the financial data provided. Now look at the right side. This is the path to full marks. Always link every point directly to the given scenario. If the prompt states Elena provides a $5,000 loan to their struggling retail business, write exactly this. Without a formal agreement, Elena is legally entitled to 5% interest on her $5,000 loan under the 1890 Act. This mandatory $2,500 interest expense will further decrease the struggling retail business's residual profits, directly impacting David's final profit share. Context is everything. The examiner set a trap to see if you'd just list the 5% rule or if you'd actually calculate the $2,500 and explain its consequence on David.
At the end of our Digital Suite session, Alex and Sam shared their personal breakthroughs. Alex realized that formulas are useless if they aren't answering the specific command word. Sam realized that a great argument needs strict formatting to actually score. To get you to that same level, I want to synthesize this entire masterclass into 3 core, memorable pillars. Pillar 1, the 3-step question scan. Highlight the command word, extract the context, and identify the constraints. Pillar 2, the paragraph balance formula. Every time you state a rule from the 1890 Act, immediately follow it with a however or conversely to evaluate its fairness. And Pillar 3, the last 5 minutes review checklist. Verify your headings, check your terminology, and ensure your math is clearly annotated. As an actionable step right now, use this memory hack on the screen to create your own mnemonic for the 1890 Act provisions. If you have those default rules locked in automatically, you free up massive cognitive bandwidth for high-level analysis and evaluation.
So I leave you with this final, provocative thought. If an examiner reviewed your last practice response right now, would they see a generic formula or a fully evaluated, context-specific strategy? Don't just practice getting the math right, practice the process. Thank you for joining this session. Crushing Cambridge exams requires consistent, proven strategy. So I need you to hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our future exam hacks, and right now, go into the comments and drop your target grade. Claim it, work for it, and I will see you in the next masterclass.